What kind of person storms onto a stranger's farm, rips up crops, and calls it justice? Karen Mitchell did exactly that on a blistering August afternoon in Iowa, her designer sneakers sinking into the soft earth of Tom Harlan's cornfield. She wasn't a farmer, not even a neighbor, just a woman with a vendetta against anything she deemed untidy. Karen, with her pinched lips and self-righteous glare, had driven past Tom's farm for years, her blood boiling at the sight of uneven corn rows and the occasional weed. To her, it was a personal affront, a stain on her vision of suburban perfection. That day, something snapped. She parked her gleaming SUV on the dirt road, grabbed a shovel from her trunk, and marched onto Tom's land like she owned it. She swung the shovel with ferocity, tearing through stalks, uprooting plants, and shouting about cleaning up this mess. The golden corn, Tom's livelihood, fell in clumps around her, a chaotic sacrifice to her obsession. Tom Harlan, a third-generation farmer, was in his barn when the sound of snapping stalks reached him. His weathered hands tightened around a wrench as he stepped outside, squinting into the sun. There she was, Karen, a stranger he'd never met, destroying his crop with a manic gleam in her eye. His heart pounded, not just for the loss of his corn, but for the sheer audacity of it. This wasn't just vandalism. It was an invasion. Tom's farm wasn't perfect. Droughts and late rains had left some rows sparse, but it was his. Every stalk represented months of sweat, hope, and survival. He shouted for her to stop, his voice hoarse with disbelief. But Karen didn't even look up. She was too busy swinging, her face twisted with smug satisfaction, as if she were saving the world. Tom's farmhands, Jake and Maria, heard the commotion and ran over, their boots kicking up dust. Jake, a lanky kid barely out of high school, froze at the sight of Karen's rampage. Maria, tougher and sharper, pulled out her phone and started recording, her hands trembling with rage. "Who the hell do you think you are?" Maria yelled, but Karen just sneered, calling the farm a disgrace and demanding they thank her for fixing it. Tom's blood boiled. He climbed onto his old John Deere tractor, the engine roaring to life, and drove toward her, not to hurt her, but to scare her off. The tractor's rumble shook the ground, and for the first time, Karen's smugness faltered. She dropped the shovel and stumbled back, her eyes wide with panic as the machine loomed closer. "You're crazy," she shrieked, scrambling toward her SUV. Tom stopped short, his chest heaving, but the damage was done both to his field and to Karen's pride. Karen didn't leave quietly. She climbed into her SUV, screaming about lawsuits and disrespect, her voice shrill enough to startle the crows. As she sped off, tires spitting gravel, Tom stood in the wreckage of his field, his hands shaking. Jake and Maria flanked him, their faces grim. The corn was salvageable in parts, but the loss was real, thousands of dollars. Weeks of work, gone. Maria's video captured it all: Karen's destruction, her venomous words, the tractor's chase. Tom didn't know her name then, but he knew one thing: this wasn't over. He'd spent his life fighting weather, pests, and debt. He wasn't about to let some entitled stranger ruin him without a fight. The truth about Karen emerged quickly. Maria posted the video online, and it spread like wildfire across local forums and social media. By evening, the town of Willow Creek knew Karen Mitchell as the woman who'd trashed Tom's farm for being messy. Comments poured in, some calling her unhinged, others demanding justice. Karen wasn't just a random busybody, she was a local real estate agent with a reputation for bullying neighbors into manicured lawns and cookie-cutter aesthetics. Her social media was a shrine to perfection, pristine houses, curated gardens, and sanctimonious posts about community standards. But the video painted a different picture. It showed a woman unhinged, her face contorted with rage as she tore through Tom's livelihood. The internet dubbed her Cornfield Karen, and the name stuck. Karen didn't take kindly to the backlash. She doubled down, posting a rambling defense on her public page, claiming she was protecting property values and that Tom's farm was an eyesore dragging down the neighborhood. She called herself a victim, accusing Tom of assault with his tractor and vowing to sue him into oblivion. Her post only fanned the flames. Strangers left one-star reviews on her business, and old clients shared stories of her strong-arming them into unnecessary renovations. But there was something else, whispers of a darker side to Karen's crusade. A retired neighbor, Mrs. Ellis, commented that Karen had once tried to get her evicted for having a messy backyard. Another claimed Karen had reported a family's vegetable garden as a code violation. It wasn't just Tom's farm. Karen had a history of waging war on anything that didn't fit her vision. Tom, meanwhile, was piecing together his own plan. He wasn't a litigious man, farmers rarely are, but Maria's video was ironclad evidence. He called his cousin, a small-town lawyer named Sarah, who agreed to take the case. Sarah was no nonsense, with a sharp mind and a low tolerance for bullies. She watched the video, her jaw tightening at Karen's smugness, and told Tom they had a strong case for vandalism and emotional distress. The financial loss was clear, nearly $10,000 in damaged crops, not counting the labor to replant. But Sarah saw something bigger, a chance to hold Karen accountable, not just for Tom, but for everyone she'd terrorized. They filed a lawsuit the next morning, demanding compensation and a public apology. The news spread, and Willow Creek buzzed with anticipation. Karen had picked the wrong fight. As the lawsuit gained traction, a twist emerged that no one saw coming. Maria, digging through public records, found that Karen's own property, her pristine, magazine-worthy home, was built on land zoned for agricultural use, not residential. Years ago, Karen had skirted regulations to construct her dream house, bribing an inspector to look the other way. The revelation hit like a thunderbolt. Karen, the self-appointed guardian of standards, was a hypocrite living on a legally zoned land. The discovery shifted the narrative. It wasn't just about Tom's farm anymore. It was about Karen's lies unraveling. Maria shared the documents online, and the town erupted. Karen's perfect facade cracked, her hypocrisy laid bare for all to see. The confrontation was inevitable. Karen didn't back down, even as her reputation crumbled. She hired a slick lawyer from Des Moines, a man named Victor Crane who wore tailored suits and a predatory grin. Victor filed a countersuit against Tom, claiming assault and defamation, arguing that the tractor chase was attempted murder and the viral video had ruined Karen's livelihood. The claims were absurd, but Victor's strategy was clear: intimidate Tom into dropping the case. Karen, emboldened, strutted into the courthouse for the first hearing, her chin high, her eyes daring anyone to challenge her. Tom sat across the room, his calloused hands folded, his face a mask of quiet resolve. Sarah, his lawyer, stood beside him, her notes meticulous, her gaze unflinching. The courtroom was packed: farmers, neighbors, even reporters from local papers, all drawn to the spectacle of cornfield Karen versus the underdog farmer. The hearing was electric with tension. Sarah presented Maria's video, the footage playing on a grainy projector. Gasps rippled through the room as Karen's shovel sliced through corn, her voice spitting venom. "This is a disgrace," she shrieked on screen, her face a portrait of entitlement. Sarah followed with photos of the damaged field, invoices for lost crops, and testimonies from neighbors about Karen's history of harassment. Victor countered with theatrics, painting Karen as a concerned citizen attacked by a violent farmer. He leaned hard on the tractor chase, describing Tom as a madman who'd endangered Karen's life. But the judge, a no-nonsense woman named Clara Holt, wasn't swayed by Victor's flair. She paused the hearing to question Karen directly, asking why she'd taken it upon herself to destroy private property. Karen stammered, her usual bravado faltering, muttering about community standards and aesthetic blight. The room went silent, her words ringing hollow. Then came the twist's impact. Sarah introduced the zoning records, revealing Karen's house was illegally built. The courtroom buzzed as the documents were projected, showing Karen's signature on falsified permits. Judge Holt's eyes narrowed, and even Victor's polished demeanor cracked for a moment. Karen's face went pale, her hands gripping the table. The revelation wasn't just a legal blow, it was personal. She'd built her identity on perfection, on judging others, only to be exposed as a fraud. Sarah pressed the advantage, arguing that Karen's actions against Tom were part of a pattern of bullying to deflect from her own violations. The judge didn't rule that day, but she ordered a deeper investigation into Karen's property, hinting at potential fines or worse. Tom left the courthouse feeling lighter, the weight of injustice lifting, if only slightly. Outside, the town was a tinderbox. Protesters gathered, some holding signs reading "Justice for Tom" and "Down with Cornfield Karen." Others, a small but loud group of Karen's supporters, mostly real estate cronies, shouted about property rights and unfair persecution. The divide was stark, and Tom felt it keenly. He wasn't a hero by nature. He just wanted his farm back, his life back. But the fight had become bigger than him. Maria and Jake stuck by his side, their loyalty unwavering. Maria, especially, had become a force, her social media posts keeping the pressure on Karen. She dug up more dirt, emails showing Karen had lobbied to shut down a community garden for being unsightly. Each revelation chipped away at Karen's armor, but it also made her more desperate, more dangerous. Karen's unraveling was swift and brutal. Her real estate business tanked as clients fled, unwilling to associate with the town pariah. Her social media accounts, once a beacon of curated perfection, were flooded with mockery and hate. She tried to pivot, posting tearful videos claiming she was misunderstood, but they only drew more scorn. The zoning investigation deepened, and whispers of demolition orders began to circulate. Karen's dream house, the symbol of her superiority, was now a liability. Her husband, a quiet man who'd stayed out of the spotlight, left her, unable to handle the shame. Friends stopped calling. Even Victor, her lawyer, began to distance himself, sensing a losing battle. Karen was alone, her empire of self-righteousness reduced to rubble. Tom, meanwhile, was rebuilding. Neighbors rallied, donating seeds and labor to restore his field. The lawsuit was still ongoing, but the tide had turned. Sarah was confident they'd win, especially with the zoning scandal weakening Karen's case. Tom spent evenings in his barn, the familiar scent of hay and oil grounding him. He thought about his father, who'd taught him to fight for what mattered, and his grandfather, who'd carved this farm from nothing. This was their legacy, not just his, and Karen's tantrum couldn't take that away. But the fight wasn't without scars. Tom's trust in strangers was shaken, and the financial strain lingered. Still, he found solace in the community's support, in Maria's fierce loyalty, in Jake's quiet nods. They were his people, and they'd stood by him. The final court date arrived like a storm breaking. The courtroom was fuller than ever, the air thick with anticipation. Karen sat alone at her table, Victor having withdrawn days earlier, citing irreconcilable differences. Her face was haggard, her once impeccable outfit wrinkled, her eyes darting nervously. Tom sat with Sarah, his hand steady now, his resolve ironclad. The community filled the seats behind him, farmers, shopkeepers, even Mrs. Ellis with her walker, all there to see justice done. Judge Holt entered, her presence commanding silence. She'd reviewed the evidence, the zoning records, the testimonies, and Maria's damning video. Her ruling was swift and unsparing. Karen was found liable for vandalism, emotional distress, and punitive damages, totaling $15,000 to Tom, plus legal fees. The judge also ordered a public apology to be published in the local paper. On the zoning issue, Karen's house was deemed non-compliant, facing hefty fines and a possible demolition order if she didn't comply with regulations. Karen's head bowed as the gavel fell, her arrogance shattered. She said nothing, her lips trembling, as she left the courtroom, the crowd parting like she was contagious. Tom exhaled, the weight of months lifting. Sarah squeezed his shoulder, her smile rare but genuine. "You did it," she whispered. He nodded, but his thoughts were on the farm, on the new corn sprouting in the fields. Karen's collapse was complete. The apology appeared in the Willow Creek Gazette, a stilted paragraph that reeked of resentment rather than remorse. She sold her house at a loss to cover fines, moving to a small apartment on the edge of town. Her real estate license was suspended, her business a memory. The town didn't forget, and neither did the internet. Cornfield Karen became a cautionary tale, a meme shared far beyond Iowa. Karen withdrew, her once loud voice silenced, her crusade for perfection buried under the weight of her own hypocrisy. She was a ghost in Willow Creek, avoided and ignored, her legacy a warning against unchecked entitlement. For Tom, the victory was bittersweet. The money helped, but it didn't erase the months of stress, the sleepless nights worrying about his farm's future. Yet something deeper had grown from the ordeal. The community's support, neighbors showing up with shovels, kids planting seeds, strangers sending letters of encouragement reminded him why he'd stayed on this land. Farming wasn't just about crops. It was about roots, about people who stood together when the world tried to tear them down. Maria and Jake were family now, their bond forged in the fight. Maria started a blog, chronicling the farm's recovery, her words raw and hopeful. Jake, quieter, took to carving small wooden tractors, gifting one to Tom as a reminder of their stand. The corn grew back, taller than before, swaying under the Iowa sun. Tom walked his fields one evening, the air cool, the stalks whispering. He thought about Karen, not with anger, but with pity. She'd built her life on tearing others down, and it had cost her everything. Tom's life, though, was built on something stronger: dirt, sweat, and the people who'd stood by him. The lawsuit was over, the field restored, but the real triumph was this: he'd kept going. He'd faced a storm and come out whole. And as the sun dipped low, painting the corn gold, Tom knew he'd plant again tomorrow, and the day after, and every day after that. Because that's what farmers grow, no matter what tries to break them.